Welcome back to the deep dive. Our mission here, as always, is pretty simple. We take a huge stack of source material articles, reports, even private notes, and we pull out the essential knowledge you need to get up to speed on a really complex topic.
And today we are strapping in. This is an intense one. We're doing a deep dive into a near future investigation that, honestly, it reads like a masterclass in just relentless, obsessive police work.
Absolutely. The sources lay out this incredibly high-stakes operation, and it all centers on the return of one of the most chilling serial killers in recent memory, a man named David Palmer.
And what's so extraordinary about our sources here is the vantage point they give you. This isn't just a standard procedural. We're looking at a detailed psychological roadmap of a man driven by a very calculated, very long-term obsession.
It's a blow-by-blow account, really. We're following Lieutenant Eve Dallas as she hunts down a man she'd already put away for life.
A monster who came back specifically for her.
And the timeline. I mean, the timing couldn't be more dramatic. The whole thing kicks off on Christmas morning, 2058.
Yeah, in a freezing, futuristic New York City. The sources make it so clear that the holiday season, it didn't offer any kind of pause button for this kind of evil.
It sets this immediate tone of cold professional urgency right up against this backdrop of, well, forced festivity.
Exactly. And the call comes in less than 6 hours after Dallas has closed another massive, just exhausting case. So you see this conflict right away.
The burnout.
Total burnout. The sheer exhaustion of a veteran cop colliding with this instant, recognizable threat of a nemesis who's back. The psychological stress is already there before she even walks out the door.
And that stress becomes very real, very fast with the crime scene. They find the first victim, Judge Harold Winger, dead center on the Rockefeller Center ice rink.
And he's positioned deliberately to be facing straight up at that enormous, glittering Christmas tree. This was a public spectacle. He wanted everyone to see this.
So every detail was planned.
Oh, every single one. Every detail of that scene just screamed meticulous, sadistic planning. Wayner's body was stripped naked, already a deep, alarming blue from the cold.
And the details about his hair.
Right. The judge had this really prominent, thick silver hair. It was like his trademark. And it had been roughly, almost contemptuously just chopped off. It's this layer of grotesque humiliation added on top of everything else.
Let's get into the forensic details because they're so crucial for understanding who this killer is. The sources document this severe, deliberate battering.
Yeah, the fingers of both his hands were broken, multiple fractures. It suggests he was either being interrogated or just tormented.
And there were ligature wounds too, right?
Deep ones around his wrists and ankles, which tells you he was bound securely for a long, long time while he was captive.
But the actual cause of death is what really gives Palmer away. It's his signature.
It is the ultimate fingerprint of his sadism. The ME confirms the death wasn't quick. It wasn't the beating. It wasn't the exposure. A rope was still around his neck, biting deep into the flesh.
But his neck wasn't broken.
That's the critical finding. His neck was not broken. The rope was used for a slow, controlled constriction, a prolonged, agonizing strangulation. You could see it from the burst vessels in his eyes and face. Palmer wanted him alive, feeling everything, for the maximum possible time.
And then, the final signature, the message.
The message burned into his chest. Judge not, lest you be judged. And while Dallas might have hoped it was postmortem, just, theatrical defiance.
She knew it wasn't.
She knew. The depth, the precision. It was almost certainly done while he was still conscious, or at least very recently deceased, just to maximize that terror.
And this all leads to the one piece of evidence that turns us from a single murder into a full-blown citywide emergency.
The list, fixed right over the judge's groin, almost ritualistically, was a handwritten note. The sources really emphasized the neat square block lettering. This was prepared well in advance, and it contained 6 names.
This defined the threat immediately. This wasn't a random spree.
No, this was a targeted vendetta. The names were all the key players from his original trial. Judge Harold Winger, of course. Then prosecuting attorney Stephanie Ring, public defender Carl Nyson, the jury foreman Justine Polinsky, and Dr. Charlotte Mura, the court psychiatrist.
And the final name on that list?
The final name, Lieutenant Eve Dallas.
So the MO was instantly recognizable. The gleeful infliction of pain, the slow death, the public body dump, it all screamed David Palmer.
For Dallas, the shock was realizing that a monster she had personally caged had just meticulously planned this deadly, very personal encore, and the list, with her name saved for last, confirmed this wasn't just revenge. It was a methodical, psychological confrontation he had been planning for years.
So let's transition to that and really dive deeper into the man himself, David Palmer. He was, as we said, serving 8 consecutive life terms.
Right, in the off-planet Rexel Penal Facility. We're talking maximum security, isolated from Earth entirely, and yet somehow he escaped.
The documentation says it was during a transport.
It was a transport to the prison infirmary on December 19th. And that's key because it gave him almost a week to get back to Earth, acclimatize, secure his hideout, and start his operation before anyone even found Wenger's body.
That time lag is huge. It speaks volumes about his patience.
Patience and preparedness. And what makes Palmer so chilling isn't just the brutality, it's the intellectual veneer he wraps around it all.
The source material really digs into this. He doesn't see himself as a criminal or a sadist. He sees himself as a scientist.
A visionary. He truly believed his hideous acts served some higher professional purpose. This is the core of his pathology, and it's critical to how Dallas had to approach the investigation.
What was this mission of his?
His self-proclaimed mission was to explore and record the human mind's tolerance to extreme duress. He wasn't interested in just murder. He wanted data points, data derived from maximum pain, fear, starvation, sensory deprivation. He wanted to chart the human breaking point.
And the rationale for that is just terrifying.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. He thought that by understanding how the mind breaks, humanity could find ways to enhance mental fortitude. He saw a future in selling this psychological training regimen for high-stress jobs.
Like military special forces or police.
Or even corporate executives. He was literally trying to commercialize torture.
And the sources have transcripts of Dallas's original interviews with him, right?
They do, and they paint this incredibly eerie picture. He could talk about his research with this bright enthusiasm, his face all lit up, maintaining this completely professional demeanor. He talked about his victims as subjects who yielded valuable or sometimes disappointing data.
The detachment is just...
Yeah.
Wow. And we see it in the analysis of his past victims. The example of Michelle Hamill, the Olympic hopeful runner.
He called her magnificent. He admired her discipline, from years of athletic training, and he noted how she fought. She held out for 3 whole days against the torture.
Trying to reason with him, cursing him.
Using her adrenaline to fight the pain stimuli, even after he'd broken bones in her feet and arms, it's horrific, but in his mind, she was a success.
And you contrast her with another victim, Leroy Green.
Exactly. Palmer just dismissed Green, said he had no tolerance for disruptive stimuli. Green's mind broke almost instantly, so he yielded very little useful data in Palmer's view. He just treated them like variables on a scale of endurance.
It's that unsettling professional calm that let Dallas identify him so quickly. The second Wenger's body was found. She didn't need DNA. She knew.
Which brings us right to the first major procedural challenge she faced, her personal connection to the case.
This is a classic conflict, right? Objectivity versus experience.
A huge one. She was his original caller. She built the case that put him away, and now her name is the grand finale on his kill list. Her superior, Commander Whitney, had immediate and very severe hesitations.
He noted her recent heavy caseload.
Right. The sources mentioned she'd literally just closed an incredibly demanding case hours before Christmas, and her aide, Peabody, had recently been attacked. Dallas was already operating under extreme strain. Whitney wanted someone else to take primary.
So it's that crucial question. When does institutional memory outweigh the need for strict objectivity?
And Dallas's counterargument was what won the day. It was rooted in the killer's psychology. She convinced Whitney that nobody else knew the inside of his mind the way she did.
She understood his motive. He didn't just want revenge.
He wanted acknowledgement for his genius. And critically, she argued that a new primary would need weeks just to read the files, wasting precious time while Palmer was already moving down his list.
And she got it. The sources quote, "Whitney, it's your case, Dallas. Close it."
And that one exchange just sets the stage for the absolutely relentless pursuit that defines the next 4 days.
Which brings us to part 2, where we see the immediate mobilization of this investigation and the psychological warfare that Palmer starts waging immediately.
And Dallas's first move, I think, it really speaks volumes about the pressure she was under. She decides to work from home. Or rather, from Roarke's extravagant home office, not Cop Central.
The sources paint this incredible contrast. The grim chaos of a murder investigation set against this overwhelming wealth and elegance. Sparkling crystal, priceless art, perfectly decorated trees.
She needed a base of operations that was separate from the institutional pressure cooker of Cop Central. She needed control.
And this is where her partner, Roarke, becomes this essential, if completely unauthorized, technological asset. her drone, as she calls him.
Yeah, this partnership is a key element in how this all unfolds. It lets Dallas just bypass all the bureaucratic bottlenecks that you'd normally see in a high-level police investigation.
She tries to set boundaries at first, right?
Yeah.
Offers him her official police access codes, wants to maintain procedure.
And Roarke, this former street thief turned billionaire industrialist, he just shrugs it off. He tells her, I can't work if you insult me, and then instantly pulls up all the data she needs. Palmer's trial files, psych profiles, financials, everything.
Which has to be unnerving for a cop like Dallas.
Completely. We should probably pause here and explain the tech for you. The sources mention CompuGuard a lot. Think of it as the future equivalent of a centralized, high-level digital fortress for all police and government data.
So Rourke bypassing it isn't a simple hack.
No, it's a demonstration of his profound, maybe illicit capabilities. He built a lot of this global electronic infrastructure himself, so he knows its skeleton better than the people who run it. He cuts procedural time from days down to seconds.
The sources use this to highlight their dynamic, too. Her past drove her to the structure of the law. His past drove him to operate outside of it.
Yet they work perfectly together. We even get that small detail about the Christmas gift he gives her. A small, expensive, but empty box.
Representing a day she can fill however she wants. A gift of normalcy in the middle of all this chaos.
But that moment of normalcy is shattered almost immediately by the killer's pace. Within hours of finding Winger, they realize their initial protection efforts have already failed.
APA Stephanie Ring is reported missing.
She'd left on December 24th to visit family in Philadelphia, but she never arrived. Her car, her luggage, all still untouched in her garage.
And Dallas's reaction is just brutal and immediate. Too late. Already too late.
Palmer had grabbed Ring before the police even knew Winger was dead. It just confirms the scope of his head start.
And then Palmer, demanding that acknowledgement you mentioned, ensures his story gets out. He sends a disc.
A secured disc directly to top Channel 75 reporter Nadine First, who happens to be a friend of Dallas's. He wants the police and the world to know he's back at work.
The video on that disc, it's both crucial intelligence and an overwhelming psychological taunt.
It starts with a personalized message to Dallas. He expresses his professional admiration for her stamina and says he's counting on her to find him. He's setting the stage.
And then it gets gruesome.
Then the horror begins. The video shows Judge Doomer's body, bound and suspended, being subjected to post-mortem degradation. Simulated laser burns, electric shocks, all monitored by equipment.
He's still cataloging his subjects, even after they're dead.
But the immediate urgency comes from the next scene. Stephanie Ring. She's alive. She's in a small metal cage, just big enough to crouch in, and she's screaming as the cage is repeatedly shocked.
And you hear Palmer's voiceover, completely detached.
Chillingly detached. He's explaining his methodology. He says he must begin one subject before completing work on another, like he's following a research protocol.
And he ends with a direct message to Dallas.
You'll last longer, Dallas. We both know that. You'll be my most fascinating subject. I have such wonders planned for you. The game, for him, has officially begun.
So this Kant makes the next step brutally clear. Dallas has to find his clandestine workspace, his hole, before he finishes with Ring and moves on.
She has to override the sheer horror of what she's just seen and focus entirely on the physical details in that video.
And the clues were minimal, right? He chose a place designed for obscurity.
Very minimal. A plain concrete floor, old brick walls, some steps.
Right.
But the single most telling detail was an old, large tank furnace. The analysts immediately keyed in on that.
Why was the furnace so important?
Because, as the sources detail, anything built in urban New York City within the last, say, 15 to 20 years would use modern thermal regulation. That tank furnace meant the building was old, pre-redevelopment, likely a private, large, older residence.
And Dallas knew Palmer was an urbanite. He wanted to be close to his targets.
Which confirms the location is almost certainly within the metropolitan area. And that shifts the search from a generalized dragnet to a targeted property record hunt. It's a vital turning point.
Okay, so that moves us into part 3. The procedural investigation starts gaining real traction, but at the same time, the violence escalates dramatically.
Right. And Dallas's first move is to follow the money. But Palmer's known, officially frozen accounts are a dead end. He's too meticulous for that.
This is where Rourke's strategic advice comes in.
He tells her to look beyond the obvious. He explains that high-level criminals exploit systemic blind spots like transactions involving relatives. The sheer volume of global commerce means that funds being moved between accounts with the same last name and blood ties. They just rarely get flagged.
So they needed a family name.
And this is the breakthrough. Roarke bypasses the sealed CompuGuard files protecting Palmer's parents and finds his mother's maiden name, Riley.
Which leads them to a hidden account.
A substantial brokerage account under the name Palmer Riley. It held just over $1.3 million.
And the most critical detail.
It had been activated 6 months before his escape.
Wow. So this confirms it. He'd been planning this for years, and he somehow had access to a computer, a link, inside a maximum security off-planet prison.
It explains everything. He wasn't improvising. He was shopping, moving funds, buying equipment, all while still in his cell. He'd bought his freedom financially long before he physically broke out.
And just as they're unraveling this, the case takes another terrifying turn.
Public defender Carl Nissen is abducted, even while under full police protection. This shows Palmer isn't just a planner. He's actively monitoring and defeating their countermeasures in real time.
How did he do it?
Pure deception. He got his hands on an authentic-looking cop suit, an official police uniform, and just posed as the relief officer. He walked right in, stunned the real guard, bound him, and left him in the trunk of a car. It required perfect timing and intimate knowledge of police protection protocols.
The next morning, they find Stephanie Ring's body.
Confirming that Palmer's timetable is moving like clockwork, Nissen has taken her place in the cage. She was found on the Central Park Carousel, another highly visible, public, and cruelly ironic dumping ground.
And her injuries were different for the judges.
Very different, not blunt force. Instead, she had these numerous, long, thin slices all over her arms and legs. The analysis suggested a toxic or nerve agent substance was applied to those small wounds.
Not to kill her quickly.
To maximize sensory agony, to create prolonged, searing pain.
And the posing of the body was theatrical.
Deliberately so. Her feet had been dislocated into this grotesque parody of a ballet stance. And the final message was carved into her midriff. Let's kill all the lawyers.
A literary reference. A final mocking commentary.
So now, Dallas pivots entirely to logistics. She uses that money trail to trace his operational purchases. This is where her police work and Roarke's intel capabilities really synthesize.
They track the vehicle he's using.
A sleek, black Booster 6Z. For you listening, think of it as a new, high-speed, sport utility vehicle with vertical takeoff and landing capability. A VTOL.
Which explains how he can move so fast and carry heavy cargo, like people and equipment, around a dense city without being seen.
He bought it with a direct, untraceable e-transfer under an alias, Peter Nolan. No credit checks, no background data, clean.
And the financial trail also leads to a warehouse.
A supply warehouse off Canal Street. They find the clerk, who provides an in-person ID of Palmer's photo. Chillingly describes him as a nice young man.
And the gear he bought is highly revealing.
Oh, it's a shopping list for torture. 120 yards of high-grade nylon strapping cord, which Dallas notes Riley is made by a subsidiary of Roarke Industries. Heavy-load pulleys, steel rings, industrial cable.
And critically, a sophisticated tool set.
A steel guard tool set with an accessory laser package. And that, right there, is likely what he used to bypass security systems. It confirms his methods are high-tech, professionally equipped, and designed specifically to defeat their protection.
He left a trail, but only because he was confident he was ahead.
And because his ego required Dallas to find him, but only on his terms.
Which brings us to part 4, and the tension is just. It's reaching a breaking point. The clock is ticking toward New Year's Eve, and Dallas is running on fumes.
Her response is total mobilization. She pulls in her aide, Peabody, and Feeney, the chief of the Electronics Detective Division, and she dispatches Peabody and another detective, McNabb, off-planet immediately.
To Rexel, to find out how Palmer got access to a computer in the first place.
Exactly. Their mission was to figure out that technological breach, and it was a grueling, urgent trip.
And they found it, right. The source of the breach.
They did. It was the prison chapel. Palmer had executed this meticulous long-term deception, convincing the Padre he'd had a religious awakening and wanted to write an inspirational book.
Which gave him unsupervised access to a low-security computer.
It did. McNabb had the difficult job of scraping away all the praise the Lord hype from the memory banks to find the hidden financial data. A tough job, complicated by the off-planet lag and bad equipment.
Meanwhile, back on Earth, Dallas has to confront Dr. Mira, one of the last 2 targets.
Right. Nison's abduction proved their protection was vulnerable, but despite the extreme danger, Dr. Mira refuses to go into a secure protective custody facility.
And her reasoning was actually very strategic.
Highly strategic. She argued that if you hide the remaining targets, Palmer will just find a substitute, an innocent victim, to maintain his schedule. Or, even worse, he'd accelerate his timeline and strike at Dallas, his grand prize, prematurely.
She argued that staying visible would keep him on his original path.
And Dallas compromises. It's a moment of rare personal vulnerability for her. She admits, "You matter to me," and agrees to let Mira stay, but only under severely restricted conditions. Double the guards and a mandatory tracer bracelet.
The emotional weight of that decision must have been immense. She's essentially using her friend as bait.
And trusting that she can intercept Palmer before he can strike. The strain on her is incredible.
And then Palmer delivers his most brazen taunt yet.
He is spotted by Dallas herself on Park and 80th in his black Booster 6E. He pulls this deliberately provocative move. He grins, blows her an exaggerated kiss.
And then just goes vertical and vanishes.
Using the VTOL capability, he escapes before Air Patrol can even react. It's a psychological dagger. It confirms he's running the show, enjoying the hunt, and making sure she knows he's always one step ahead.
And this is what pushes Dallas to her breaking point.
Yes, the exhaustion and frustration make her realize she's been trying too hard to predict a rational man. She realizes he's just fucking crazy.
And this professional exhaustion is what leads to the breakthrough, the aha moment.
She realizes she's been forgetting the personal, emotional core of his obsession. Palmer doesn't just want to kill them. He wants Dallas to find him, to validate his superiority.
So the location itself has to be personal.
Exactly. She suggests checking property records using her name or combinations like David Dallas. It's this incredible lateral thinking leap that standard procedure would never have allowed.
And Roarke runs the search.
And gets 3 hits for David Dallas. 2 are quickly ruled out, but the final hit is Palmer's parents' old brownstone. He'd bought the place 2.5 years ago under that alias.
The sheer long-term planning is just staggering.
And the location? The shock is immediate. It was only 5 blocks from Dallas's own home. He had set up his entire center of operations right in her neighborhood.
The final ultimatum arrives on New Year's Eve.
Just 16.5 hours before midnight, Palmer calls her. He confirms he's abducted Dr. Mira, bypassing her new advanced tracer bracelet with his specialized laser tool set.
And the ultimatum is simple.
Terrifyingly simple. Dallas has to come to the location alone by midnight for their end-of-year celebration. Any sign of backup, any wire, any breach, and Mira dies instantly. The showdown is set.
We are now at part 5, the showdown. The final hours of the year are ticking down to Palmer's midnight deadline.
The strategic planning here is incredibly tense. Dallas decides to go in alone, accepting the risk of meeting him on his terms. But her team gives her a technological edge.
Feeney, the EDD chief.
Feeney provides her with a concealed, state-of-the-art transmitter. But critically, it includes a sophisticated decoy system.
So Palmer's equipment will think it's found a wire and jammed it.
Exactly. He'll detect the decoy, confirm the jam, and believe she's clean. But the true transmitter will remain hidden and functional.
And Roarke, of course, is not staying out of it.
No, despite her fierce demands, he's waiting nearby with Feeney and the backup team. He's studied the brownstone schematics and has a plan to remotely bypass the entire house security system in 20 minutes if she doesn't check in.
A vital entry point for the backup team.
Dallas enters the brownstone at 10 p.m., 2 hours early. She bypasses the locks and heads to the basement. And the scene waiting for her is just surreal.
They decorate it.
He's dressed the torture chamber up for a party. Festive streamers, balloons, chilled champagne, even canapes. It's this perverse, celebratory twist on the horror.
And Dr. Mira is the centerpiece.
She's in that large metal cage, suspended above the floor by the pulleys and rings he bought. His plan was executed flawlessly.
The negotiation that follows is deeply psychological.
Almost professional. Palmer gleefully outlines the death mechanism. A control button connected to the cage will deliver a massive, lethal electrical current, and he reiterates his failsafe.
Even if she takes him out, his dying muscle spasm will depress the button and kill Mira.
Mira, from the cage, even tries to use her psychiatric training on him, validating his ego. But Palmer isn't interested. He orders her to stop. He only wants his final audience with Dallas.
And this is when Dallas makes her move, the final gamble.
She offers herself as the subject in exchange for Mira's release. She plays directly into his ego, arguing she's the superior, more durable subject for his ultimate experiment.
Fulfilling his need for payback and finish your work.
She argues Mira will go down fast, giving him no satisfaction, while Dallas herself will yield the maximum data and the ultimate acknowledgement he craves.
So she puts her main weapon down.
Visibly. But she keeps a hidden clinch piece. A small, concealed secondary weapon ready, and she forces him to agree to one condition: unlock and lower the cage first before she steps into the trap.
And his ego blinds him.
Completely. The sources say he's all but quivering with excitement. He lowers the cage, releases the locks on Mira, and as he steps back to gloat, Dallas makes her move.
The climax is immediate.
And brutal. She fires the concealed clinch piece, the blast hits him center mass, and just as he predicted, his body spasms convulsively. His finger depresses the control button as he falls, but his body lands directly across the conductive metal cage.
So the device meant for Mira electrocutes him instead.
Instantly, sparks fly everywhere. Dallas drags Mira clear, shielding her, and Roarke, having bypassed security and hearing the commotion on the wire, enters the room immediately. He confirms the kill and attends to Mira.
The case is closed at the very last second of the year.
And this whole investigation, it really serves as a masterclass in synthesis. Dallas and her team succeeded because they moved beyond just forensics. They leveraged Palmer's deep-seated psychological need for acknowledgement against the physical evidence of his planning.
Looking at the sources, Palmer's fatal error wasn't a mistake in his plan. It was his ego.
Absolutely. He needed to be acknowledged as a genius, which meant he had to be found by Dallas. That forced him to leave a trail. Sending the video, using his family's old home under that personal alias, taunting her on the street.
He orchestrated the hunt, but in doing so, he gave her the very clues she needed.
And we have to talk about the personal cost. This was intensely intimate for Dallas. It forced her to confront her own violent past, which is what fueled her determination. And her success was only possible because of her support system.
Roarke, Mira, Peabody, Feeney.
That network countered the isolation and madness that Palmer represented. It's what kept her from breaking.
It's just a compelling, disturbing look at the limits of procedure when you're faced with this kind of pure, inexplicable evil that's been plotted for years.
Which brings us to our final thought for you, the listener, drawn directly from the analysis in these sources. David Palmer was a genuine monster, but the sources confirm he had no psychological or physiological root for his condition.
He was raised with love, with discipline, with care, by decent, heartbroken parents.
So if the entire system, the justice system, the prisons, the psych profiles, if all of it failed to prevent this calculated evil from manifesting and returning with such meticulous planning, what does that imply about the limits of our own understanding? What happens when institutional logic meets the unpredictable, undeniable nature of a singular, self-justifying evil?
The deep dive is complete. Now, armed with this knowledge, consider the trails we all leave behind.